You should be unmuted.
Right.
Everybody hear me?
Yeah. Hey, Coach. Thanks for joining us.
You're all welcome. Thank you very much. Practice was good. It better be on your first day back, but there's been so many distractions, and without spring practice, I thought the guys did a good job with their social distancing, and you worry about a herd mentality. It's the first time we've had the whole team together, but they worked hard. They threw and caught the ball pretty well, and I thought the coaches were organized, so I was proud of that. They were really excited to see the schedule this morning. As soon as we got it, we gave it to them, and now our coaches were not planning on opening up with Syracuse, so that's a new game for us that the guys have not worked on, so they've got a short window here to start working on that a lot. And then I just told them at the end of practice that they were 19 in the coaches poll, so they're excited and have a lot to play for, and I think the schedule's good, but it'll be a little interesting that NC State moved back to the middle. You got Notre Dame and Miami at the end. We start at home for the first two ball games. We still don't know who the +1's going to be, but I like the fact that we're at home for the first 2 weeks to kind of get settled, and then we got to hop on a plane and go to Boston College. So a lot of fun things going on, and guys, we're really excited to get back on the field. Questions?
Great. Deanna King, you are leading us off. Please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Glad to
Deanna.
see you today.
Thank you. Good.
I'm just piggybacking a little bit on what you said about the excitement, just the team morale about finally getting to practice and seeing the schedule and knowing for sure now they're going to be opening up at home against Syracuse.
Yeah, they're really excited. There was so much enthusiasm. Since we weren't able to tell them in the past that for sure we were going to play 100%, and they didn't really have a starting date 100%, and they didn't know who we were going to play. And then even when they said who we were going to play, it still doesn't have a life to them until they get a date for each game. So all of that kind of, I think it kind of came to reality today that, hey, we may actually play. It's important. We better go to work. So I think this was a really good day for our football team because they see some exciting challenges ahead that they weren't sure where that was a week ago.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our coaches now know who to prepare for. If we didn't know whether we would have a team that we hadn't been preparing for in the opening game, and we've got that now. So our coaches have to look at all of our practice stuff, but they've got to go home and start working on Syracuse immediately.
Ross Martin, you're up next.
Hey, Coach, now that you've kind of had a glimpse of the team for a couple weeks now, are there a couple names that stand out that have looked different off of more strength conditioning, younger players that have changed their bodies? I've noticed with the roster release, we've noticed some significant weight gains on certain players.
Yeah, I would think, and you're kind of catching me off guard, Ross, but I do think Awesome Richards is 320 pounds and looks great and hasn't lost a step of quickness. So he is, we're still in shorts. We understand that, but he's been very impressive over the last couple of weeks with his quickness and his footwork and the things that he can do. Easy continues to get better. We're excited about him because he's done everything right for us, and he needs to be a super player, not a good player. Jordan Tucker's come back in really good shape, and he's more flexible now, so he's really worked with Hess in the offseason. A guy that stands out to me a whole lot on defense in just the last 2 weeks has been Tyrone Hopper. He can really run, and he's bigger and he's stronger, and this is the first time he's been healthy, really healthy for a long time. So I thought he was very impressive today because of his ability to rush the passer and drop. So he gives us a lot of flexibility with the defense we're looking at. The two young linebackers, Kadri Jackson, he's like, we'd have to look and see exactly, but maybe 228 or 230 and really looks good. I talked to Eugene Asante this morning. He's 219, So he's getting that weight that we wanted him to get, and he looks really good with that. And then after one day of the freshman, we'll have a staff meeting discussion today and see which of those guys look really good and not. We didn't get a real chance to see Grayson Atkins a lot today, so we'll see him over the first week to 10 days here. But the reports have been good from him too. But I think those guys are guys that just jumped out, Ross.
Thank you. And quickly, you have Awesome slot in as left tackle.
Yes.
And Joshua or Easy at guard.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. And what we're trying to do, and we've challenged the guys, we'd like to have 22 guys that can play on both sides of the ball and get out of this first team, second team stuff and get into who can play, who's going to help us beat Syracuse. And then you get into how many plays each one of them plays. And I know everybody gets so hung up on, is he a starter? Who's going to start? That's one of our problems. We just had starters last year. We didn't have enough depth. So we really need to create depth, and we lost that ability this spring. So we've got to catch up quickly here in preseason.
Thanks, Coach. I like that turtleneck.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up, Brian Keys.
Hi, Mac. I just wanted to ask if you had seen the letter that was released publicly yesterday from the Orange County Health Department recommending that the university not hold in-person classes for the next 5 weeks and try and limit on-campus housing as much as possible, and what your thoughts were about keeping the players on campus during that, despite that recommendation, and also potentially sending them to in-person classes.
Brian, this is the first time I've heard anything about that, and that's way above my level of expertise. Nobody will ask me about those things, and if someone needs us to do something, I'm sure they'll come and tell us. But I'm just really happy that doctors and medical staff are making all these decisions and recommendations to our chancellor, and then it goes from the chancellor to about 18 different people to Bubba, then to me. So you can see how many people wanted to get that to me since I just heard it from you first. I haven't heard it yet. So, but we'll do whatever we're directed to do by our medical people.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, Greg Barnes, you're up next.
Hey, Mac. With I know in years past, because you've had off-season workouts and spring practice and all those kind of things, as you get deeper into training camp, you can start to kind of cheat a little bit and look forward to that first opponent. I'm assuming you can't do that this year, given the fact that you haven't had these players, and you're going to have to do more of a strict, game week practice. But can you kind of dive into that a little bit?
Greg, it's a great question, but for number one, a lot of our players are back, and there's a lot of recall with the guys who have been around. What we've got is some really good young guys that need a lot of playing time that don't know what to do. So we're in a little bit of a bind that we're going to have to work the older ones, but really work the younger ones on fundamentals, technique, how to practice in college, out of high school, and get them ready to play in a ball game. So I think you're right. We've got to spend time on us. It's really, really important that we start working every day on our depth. And if we know Tamon Fox is a really good player, then what we'll do is we'll get him in shape, continue to get him in shape. We'll coach him hard on fundamentals. He won't spend as much time in preseason working as maybe a Des Evans, a Chris Collins, a Kamen Rucker, because they're going to need to get reps so we can tell whether they'll be ready to play against Syracuse or not. So it's kind of a unbalance of older, experienced guys that know what to do with our offense and defense. So there's a lot of recall today, and it went quick. But at the same time, you've got a new influx of 25 guys that have never been out there. So we've got to work them in because some of them will be playing in that first game.
Have you had time yet to kind of get an idea of who the leaders on this team are?
Probably not. I mean, I can say that just popping out of my head again is Patrice Renee and Miles Wolfolk are definitely leaders on our defense. And then you have to take Sam because your quarterback's usually the guy on offense. He and probably Michael Carter would be the first two guys that I would pick on offense, and those would be the first two guys that I would pick on defense. Chaz, because he was thrown into a position he'd never played before last year, spent all of his time trying to learn. So I think he will be more vocal now that he knows what to do, and he's such a great player that the guys will really look up to him as well. And then I do think they look up to Tamon Fox on defense.
Thanks, Mac.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Okay, Norm Wood, you're next. Please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hey, Mac. I'm with the Daily Press in Newport News, Virginia, and the Virginia Pilot in Norfolk, Virginia. Hey, I spoke with Daz yesterday for a little while, and he mentioned that at some point last season he had come to you and mentioned that he would like to give, in addition to playing wide receiver, try to give defensive back a shot. And your response to him was, let's just focus on catching the ball, which he took to mean, forget it, put it on the shelf for good, and let's just play, which he respected. He appreciated the fact that you were up front with him, and he said, that's the way it's been with you the whole time. Do you remember that conversation and how it went? And what have you seen from him? Again, I know it's very early here. You haven't seen an awful lot. What have you seen from him in terms of improvement?
Norm, Daz is a cut-up. So it was probably walking in the hall, and he probably said one day, hey, Coach, I want to play defensive back too. And I said, no, go catch the ball better. That's probably the conversation. I don't remember a lot of it. So,
right.
And I have 120 of them I walk by every day. So they hit me with a lot of different stuff. But I'm really proud of him. At some point, probably mid-season last year, he really got focused. He got in tremendous shape. He's handled himself well all spring. He wants to be an NFL player. And some guys, a lot of guys are motivated by different things. He wants to help our team win. He loves the place. He's doing really well in school. But at the same time, he knows that if he's not in shape and if he drops balls, he's not going to play in the NFL, and that's a dream of his. So a lot of the guys at his age are motivated by, I've got to do everything right in my life to be drafted, because that's I had my dream to be at Carolina. That's worked. Now I have my dream to win a championship. Still need to do that. But my next chapter after this is going to be the NFL. So I think he's really driven right now to be the best player he can possibly be this year, so he can get a chance at the NFL. Some of those catches he made in the bowl game were just phenomenal.
What's your relationship like with him? You mentioned the fact he's a cut up, which can be a good thing and can be a bad thing. Is he a guy that you like that sort of attitude that he brings and keeps guys loose in a way, or would you rather him be a little more serious at times?
No, he's serious on the field. He is all work, so I love him. He's fun. I'm a cut up. I love cutting up with him. We have to tell him. I've told him I'm a smart aleck. So if I say something that hurts your feelings, come tell me what I said, because I won't even remember it. But he's fun, and he's a guy I enjoy being around, and I really enjoy being around most of them. That's why Sally and I came back to do this. But it's fun to watch him grow and to see the improvements he's made since last year to now. And I can't wait to watch him this fall. I'm really pumped about our three wide receivers, and we've got to find out who's going to be behind them. There's some really good wide receivers on this team, and I'm excited about watching them work with our quarterbacks.
Well, last thing, he had a lot of drops last year, obviously, and he talked about that really bugging him. And he said he almost he didn't use these words, but I mentioned it to him. He said he had spent 15, 30 minutes at a time running the same route, on plays that he felt like he had a lot of drops on last year. He'd spend 15, 30 minutes at a time during the offseason working with his cousin David Watford back in Virginia, just trying to hone those particular routes. And I asked him if he kind of got OCD about it a little bit, and he knew what I was talking about. And he said, definitely. He said, I felt like I was, I was relentless with some of these things. Was that one of the areas where you felt like it obviously, rightfully so, bothered him? You know, he needed to get better, concentrating, working the ball, you know, watching the ball all the way into his hands and cut down some of those drops. That's one of the areas you want to see him improve.
Yes, Norm, we're very, very direct with our guys, and we're not disrespectful, but we tell them exactly what we think. And we've told them it's too hard to get open. It's too hard to protect for a quarterback, run the right route, have the ball thrown to the right place for you to drop it. So we've told our receivers, if you want to have balls thrown to you, catch them in practice. Because if you can't catch the ball in practice, we're not going to throw it to you. And I'm sorry, it's not disrespectful, it's fact. And after that, he really did a great job. We dropped way too many balls early in the year. And it wasn't just him. It was all of them. And I credit those players, but I also credit Lonnie Galloway because he did an outstanding job putting those guys together and getting them more confidence where they were good catchers. And if I go back today, I only remember one drop ball because I tell the guys all the time, Colt McCoy, he had the highest percentage of any quarterback for a long time in ball games. It was like 72%, maybe at one time 78%. And in practice, I never saw the ball hit the ground if we were against air or 7-on-7, those type of things. So I've told our guys, if you're going to be really good in the passing game, the ball can't hit the ground. The quarterback's got to be accurate, and the guy has to catch it that we're throwing it to. And that's the only way this thing works, and especially with what we're doing offensively. And I feel like they've really bought into that.
Thanks, Mack.
Thanks, Norm, for joining us today. Mike Toper, you're up next, sir.
Hey, Coach. Nice to see you.
I see.
Over the last couple weeks, you've mentioned how much depth is going to be important to you guys. And I wanted to ask you, I spoke with Mike Houston over at ECU yesterday, and he said that he needed to create depth because of the situation we're in, where if guys get a positive test or need to be in quarantine, you know, he wants each lineman to know each position. Is that a case for you guys as well, where you've had to approach this fall practice knowing that you need to create depth because you may have guys miss practices or miss games due to the pandemic or a quarantine?
Yes, Mike, we needed it anyway. So it was a priority for us. I pulled up my pre-spring practice notes yesterday, and the first thing on there was create depth. So we don't have a lot of experienced depth. So that was a key for us coming into this season. And then you may even have to cross-train some guys. Because if they test the guys on Wednesday, and let's just say it takes 2 days to get it back, Friday at noon, you could be told that 3 of your starters aren't playing. So what we've told the guys is it should be this way every year, but right now I would like to be able to take those 25 or 28 guys on defense and put the blue, which would be considered our starters. The first one, put the blue defensive line out there, the blue secondary, but white linebackers, you go. And it shouldn't make any difference because that's what we're going to do. Coaches can't sit around and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I lost 4 guys today at noon. It's just the way it's going to be. This will be a different year, and the teams with the best chance to win will be the ones with the most depth, but it's all going to be also going to be the coaches that handle it the best because there's no playbook for this. None of us have ever handled this before. So we're all having to learn how to coach a football team under these conditions.
Thanks, Mike. Andrew Jones.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned how the recall that your team had and how experienced they are, but you didn't have a spring practice, and you do have a lot of new guys, and you just speak right now about having to incorporate a bunch more players into the mix than you might have to in a typical year. How does that affect the amount of time you spend on the install on both sides of the ball during camp? Is it going to take a few more days? Do you kind of a little heavier workload early in camp to get all that done?
Andrew, it's even an interesting scenario of how we start the season. We were supposed to play the first Friday in September, so we've got another week now, week and a day that we play the 12th. So that gives us another week. So we will spread it out a little bit more. But what we're going to do is work really hard with the older guys to get them ready to play Syracuse and work a lot with the younger guys to get them to back up. And that's what we're working on. So we'll work the younger ones more in some drills than we work the older ones. Just say, Tamon, you know what to do. Come on, get out, help Des Evans. Show him what to do. Let's let Des get it. And that'll be in situations against our best offensive players, because they need to be against the best player to see what it's going to be like when they get ready to be in a ball game. So with all of our guys that have been on campus, we were so lucky to have a bowl game. So that was kind of our spring practice. The 13 that came in as early enrollees missed that, but they at least got enough of the nutrition and they got enough of Coach Hesse's strength program. That really helped them before they came back in late June. The ones that we're talking about are really the 25 new ones that we're probably going to have limited packages with them early for them to play. So maybe they're third down players. Maybe Jay puts in this package for them. Maybe we let the young receivers be involved with 5 routes that we can run with them in there. But it's probably going to be a limited package with the younger guys at the first part of the season.
After the last 5 months, you've done a lot of radio and TV interviews. We've had you, I think, 6 times, and almost all of the conversations have been about protocols, testing, will be a season. How much of a relief was it for you? How fun was it for you to get out there today, roll your sleeves up, and it was all football?
It was so much fun, and it was fun to watch the guys have fun. We've had so much talk about will they want to play and is it safe and all that. They had a blast today. This is what they want to do. This is who they are, and a lot of their identity is in football. And it was just fun to see them have some goals that they can redefine now. They shouted when they said we were in the top 20 in the poll. That was fun for them because we haven't been there for a while. It was fun for them to be out here competing with guys they haven't even seen before, because all the new guys, they've had walkthroughs. They've been in some drills with, but this is the first time they've seen those 25 new team members on the field plus Tony Grimes. So I think it's a relief off of us that we're going to play. We know who we're going to play. We know when we're going to play. That really helps us redirect who we are. I think all of us, in a sense, went through 4 or 5 months of a different life. Work was different. So we got to get back to work. We got to make sure that every little detail that we do now that was harder to do on Zoom, we're doing. And in a weird way, for all of you, we're further ahead with all of our players on meetings because we've had more meetings than ever. They are so tired of Zoom and meetings, and now they've just got to do it on the field, so they know what to do. So we're way ahead in all areas of knowing what to do. Now they've got to just do it on the field.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Okay, Aaron Beard, you're up next.
Hey, Mack, I was getting kind of set up in the middle of your answer about Syracuse a little bit earlier with the schedule, and I just wanted to follow up with something. You guys had, I guess, 6 days roughly when you knew who you were playing in the model, not necessarily what order. I was curious how much work your coaching staff was able to do in terms of preparing for that, even not knowing what order it was going to come in, scouting those teams and trying to do some work that you could at that point.
Aaron, we've been all over it because we didn't know who the opener would be. And there's more pressure on getting ready for the opener than any other team, just because there's a short span of time between now and then. And Dino's going to do what he does on offense because they're so good at it. So they're not going to have a lot of changes there, but they've got a new defensive coordinator, and they didn't go through spring practice with him. And it's a blitz scheme that's very complicated. So we've got to jump all over that. So you got a new defensive coordinator there, Mike Norvell. You have to go back to Memphis. You have to look at Florida State personnel, but you have to go back to Memphis schemes. But we'll have some games before we get to Florida State. Boston College, we don't have a spring practice. The coach is new. So we got a new quarterback. So we're a little all over the place with our first 2 ACC games. and it was probably unfortunate that two of the ones that we weren't able to study a whole lot early, but we had looked at Boston College, so we at least know their personnel. We really haven't looked at Syracuse at all.
Thanks, Mac.
Thank you. And
Thanks,
Aaron, a little weird too. We've got 4 days of preseason camp because we start school on Monday. So we have 4 days where we have all day that we can work without many limits. Starting Monday, we go to 20 hours a week, just like we do when school starts with a day off. So that'll be very different for us not having but 4 days of camp.
Okay, Deanna King, back through for another one.
Hey, Coach, my question is about the quarterback room. You got Sam, you got Jace. How important is having those two in with the experience they have with the younger guys, Jefferson Boaz and Jacoby Criswell?
Well, it's really important because Jace hasn't had any playing experience. He's been here 2 years, and I think he broke a collarbone, I think the first year early in the Georgia Tech game, I believe, and then came back and last year played a series or two right before the half against Wake Forest, and then the first time he comes in for a third down and 6 or 7, hurts his leg and is out for the rest of the year. So he just hasn't played any. And he had a good day today. He and Jacoby are working more than right now the others, but we've got to get a quarterback ready to go. We were really lucky last year that even with the amount of sacks we had early, that Sam's so tough, he stayed healthy. But we're trying to figure out how we can even play 2 quarterbacks some, just to make sure that I always like for the quarterback to be able to come out and see what's going on and stand for 3 plays while somebody else goes in, and you've always got to have a backup ready. And we weren't able to do that last year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Ross, I think we're going to wrap it up with you. Go ahead, bud.
Awesome. Hey, Mac, I know, on defense, you got linebackers pretty set in terms of starters or blue team. Defensive backs, we've heard about them. The defensive line's obviously a question mark. What's your opinion on them, the guys that stood out, I guess, leading up to camp, and maybe some names we don't know? I saw that Christian Varner has gotten huge as well.
Yeah. Ross, again, that's probably where we needed the most help with our experience. And we didn't get to work those guys. So you've got, and I don't have the list in front of me, but you've got Ray Bahasic, who we thought really did a great job the last 3 or 4 games. I mean, he's quick. He came on. He's over 300 pounds. So he's been very impressive. You've got Jalil Taylor, who has done a really good job for us. He's more of a run stopper right now on first and second down. And we started putting in 4 pass rushers on third down. You've got Zach Gill, who's been around and got some experience now, and he's stronger and bigger. You've got Christian Varner, who is 300 pounds and had a really good practice session for the bowl game. We were really impressed with him coming out of the bowl game. Then you've got Kevin Hester, who hasn't played a lot so far. You've got Miles Murphy, who's these young ones are just thrown in there, and you've got Clyde Pender, and they both are doing a good job early. So I don't know, Jeremy, you all know, am I leaving anybody out? The moms will get mad at me. And AJ
Beatty.
AJ Beatty he plays outside and in, so he's a guy we've got to decide, will he be the defensive end? Oh, and the other's Tamari Fox. Tamari's done a great job for us. So those 2 guys play both outside and inside, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get good enough athletes up front that they're interchangeable, and they can all rush the passer, and they can all chase down sweeps and screens and all the things that modern day offenses are doing. But Tamari he loves to play, and he competes, and he's never griped a minute about whether he's an end or a tackle. He didn't care. He just wants to play. So there's a lot of guys there, and that's what we've got to do. We've got to figure out a rotation. If it's 3 deep, that would be great. And then Jay did an outstanding job the last 4 or 5 games, maybe about mid-season, of getting Strobridge, but 3 other pass rushers in there, getting the big guys out. And we got much better on third down when we started having more pass rushers in the game. So that's what we've got to do. We've got to make sure that in long yardage situations, we can get to the passer, because that's something we didn't do well last year early. And because of that, we didn't force as many turnovers as we would have liked.
Is Des Evans working with the defensive line or the outside linebackers?
He's working with the outside linebackers.
Okay.
He
So
and Cayman Rucker are working with Chris Collins and Tamon Fox and Tyrone Hopper.
okay. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Coach, for your time, guys. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. We'll
Stay safe. We'll catch you in a couple of days.